Big day at TCO. Duke Shelley signs. Christian Darrisaw signs his mega deal. We got a lot to break down on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, each and every day. I appreciate you all so very much. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out. And thank you if you were here, if you are new, training camp is started, you're picking up Vikings podcasts again. Hello and welcome, or maybe welcome back. You can find the show wherever you find your favorite podcast. Just search out Locked On Vikings wherever you listen to shows, including YouTube or even Amazon Fire and Roku if you download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Today on the show, lots of news to go over. Christian Darrisaw signs a major extension early. Didn't see that one coming. I talked about it a lot this offseason, so we'll talk about not only what that means for the Vikings cap and the contract and all that stuff, but what it means to have signed early and how that kind of affects the dynamic and the relationship in the distant future. Plus, Duke Shelley is a Viking again. He comes back for a second stint with a new defensive staff. The old fan favorite is back, and we'll do his entry on the Everyman series. So, first off, Christian Darrisaw. He and the Vikings signed a $113 million contract, or a contract worth up to $113 million, with $77 million guaranteed and $43.7 million guaranteed at signing. There's your major numbers. So 4 years at $113 million, that's $28.25 million per year. I believe that by AAV makes him the highest paid tackle. However, when you look at the way that the cap is projected to increase, even without the specifics, just the drama of that increase, this looks to me like it's going to be a deal that ages very well. I do not have the contract details. We're still too early in that. I'll give you those when we got them, but I can at least speculate on them. And the details, if this is a contract like the ones Brzezinski always does, the first couple years are going to be a little bit deflated. You're going to be a little bit chill for the first couple years. So he's not going to have this giant cap hit like right now. You're going to have a chunk of that signing bonus right now. If I'm looking at $43.7 million guaranteed at signing, that probably includes his base salary this year, which Brzezinski usually does minimum base salary, and then signing bonus in the entire first year. The player will agree to that because the signing bonus is more than enough take-home pay for the year, and then it helps you distribute the cap. So if the $43.7 million is the signing bonus, then that would spread out through 5 years of the contract. Importantly, this adds 4 years onto what was already there. Right now, Christian Darrisaw is on the fourth year of his rookie deal. He'll play out his fifth-year option year, and then the next 4 years of the contract start after that. So we have Christian Darrisaw in purple through 2029. That is a long-term commitment. That's now he is the only Viking under contract for 2029. That's that. We didn't have one of those yet. Now we do. And that, I think, helps put to rest a question about Kwesi and, committing to players that I think was reasonable to ask after he sort of let go all of those veterans from the Zimmer era, many of which were old, but not all of them were old. And Danielle Hunter let go, commit to somebody, right? I was very adamant about calling for him to commit to somebody. And a lot of that too was asking for a Justin Jefferson extension and asking for this, which I thought would happen next year. So I'm very happy about this. I didn't think this was going to be possible. I didn't think Christian Darrisaw was going to say yes to this, because here is the deal. You make $28.25 million right now, but the real cap hit of that is not going to set in until 2027. And by 2027, $28 million a year ain't going to feel like anything. So signing the deal this early is, I think, going to cost Christian Darrisaw a lot of money in the long run versus if he had waited until next year, which is the exact bet Justin Jefferson made, and it worked out for him to the tune of 5 or 6 extra million per year. Like that's a big chunk of money that he made just by waiting for the cap to go up one more year before he signed the deal. That's why I went through this whole offseason thinking, like, there's no way Christian Darrisaw says yes to this. There's no way that there's no reason for him to get this done this early, which is why you don't see guys sign early this often. Right now, the people signing their extensions are people from the draft class before that one. This is we're having a CeeDee Lamb discussion, T. Higgins discussion, right? T. Higgins doesn't have the 5th-year option, obviously, so it's a little bit different. But Justin Jefferson, these are the guys signing their contract right now. So Darrisaw does it early, and I think that's going to make the contract become very, very team friendly. Now, we don't have the structure right now, but I can at least tell you what to look out for. Obviously, the structure of the guaranteed payout is really, really important. And what you're looking for when you go on to the over-the-cap breakdown is what year does this become flexible? What year does this become cuttable? What year does this look like a really hot restructure candidate? Once it's a tradable or cuttable contract, the money amount starts to feel really, really fake. Because you can always just go and say, hey, take a pay cut or we cut you, right? You can do that, which happens a lot at the end of these contracts. And by, the last year, the second to last year of the contract, you've probably done a couple of restructures and you've probably changed the cap hit so that is no longer the case. But you always have the option of not doing that, right? You're not locked into doing that. It's just kind of what tends to happen because it tends to be a pretty good idea down the road. There's also, look out for void years and stuff, although there would be no reason to put a void year on the deal right now. You can always tack that on later. If there is, look 5 years ahead of that void year, and there's probably a restructure happening. That is the way Justin Jefferson's contract is constructed. He has this big roster bonus, or this big option bonus thing that's clearly going to turn into signing bonus and be restructured. And then there's a void year that's to help that restructure a little bit thinner. But you just can't do that ahead of time. You have to put a trigger in the contract for it to happen later. So there's this void year that's got nothing in it right now. So maybe look out for that kind of thing if Brzezinski wants to use that trick again. But really, you're looking for the commitment, right? And with Darrisaw, there's not really any serious reason to not make that commitment, really hard. But with all of these contracts, I like the Jared Goff contract that he just signed. I think of that one. That's a 2-year commitment. And by year 3, there's an out. You can get out of that if it's not working out. So that doesn't show the same the same faith in him as it does, as the Justin Jefferson contract, which is deeply guaranteed, way into it, and he's going to see all that money. That's going to be the difference. So try to take your eye off the amounts a little bit and look at the commitment. But regardless, you got to be really stoked about this, right? This is really awesome, great, fun news. The thing that I can't get past is I think Darrisaw takes a bit of an L on it, even though it is the highest paid contract, for now. Rashawn Slater will probably sign a bigger one. It's fine. So it is a market rate. It is a high contract, but I think doing it now just doesn't serve him very well. But he decided to do it. Maybe he just really wanted the drama to be done. He just wanted to get his signing bonus money. He didn't want to wait anymore. And hey, sure, whatever you want, right? I can always respect that. But it's going to be team friendly. It's going to age into a way that makes it team friendly. So how about Christian Darrisaw locked up through 2029 on a team friendly deal? That's where we're at. Let's party. This rocks. And if you didn't have enough of a reason to party, there's also Duke Shelley, who everybody loves unconditionally. We love Duke Shelley, and he's back in Minnesota. So that'll be next. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Gametime. It's the best place to find last-minute tickets. They have all kinds of special sales on the Gametime app. So when you download the Gametime app, they'll have these flash deals that are big letters on the top. You can't miss them. That is where some absolutely insane savings will be on tickets to any sporting event. You're trying to go to a Twins game. You're trying to get your tickets right now ahead of time for NFL games. You want to go to the season opener against San Francisco, or maybe the London game, or maybe the Packers game late in the season. Whatever it is, you can find it at Gametime. You can even get zone deals where you choose the section and let Gametime choose the seats, and they'll use that flexibility to get you a better deal and pass those savings on to you. You can save up to 60% buying last minute because of how the ticket market works. At a certain point, people are just trying to get rid of it. And Gametime knows how to navigate that world and find the deals that you would be agonizing over to find yourself. So let Gametime do that part for you. And why don't you just enjoy the savings? Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. To keep up with the day-to-day of Minnesota sports beyond the Vikings, go to Locked On Minnesota Sports, check out their YouTube channel, and even check out Locked On Sports Today, which has a 24/7 live streaming channel, all things sports. Whole bunch of Locked On shows running through that thing all hours of the day. So no matter where you are, throw that thing on in the background and just fill your brain with Locked On shows. Duke Shelley joins the Vikings on what I anticipate to be a one-year deal. Of course, Duke Shelley was with the Vikings a couple years ago in 2022. He had a couple of major hero moments in that magical 2022 season, and we will get to those when we go through the Everyman series, but Duke Shelley's a fan favorite, right? He made such clutch plays in a season where the defense was begging for a spark. This was the Donatel year, right? Like we wanted anything to go right on defense. And so when this kind of this waiver claim guy came in and started doing things and giving us anything positive, yeah, boy, that was really exciting. So I went back and looked at some of my analysis of Duke Shelley from that year, and the way that his story played out since he went to Vegas, he didn't make the team. He was stashed on the Los Angeles Rams last year. They didn't re-sign him. It's been a lot of rejection. It's been a lot of rebuking. So what's the deal, right? We love him so much here. Why didn't anybody else love him? Why didn't Chicago keep him? And I have a guess for that, but I don't think it's a great one. But I'll give it to you anyways. I don't know. People who know more about corner can probably point out a lot of other things that he does wrong that I am not seeing, that I certainly wasn't seeing in 2022. I like to think I've come a long way since then, and we'll get into it when we get to see like preseason tape and stuff. But in addition to just being a smaller corner, which is going to be interesting for depth chart reasons, I'll get to that in a sec. What Duke Shelley was doing in 2022, it's easy to see that being lightning in a bottle. Corner is a very feel-based position. There's a lot of, even in like defensive playbooks, it says like feel the receiver, feel the route. You can't be thinking ever. As soon as you start hesitating and thinking, you're too slow, right? Everything you do has to operate on instinct and muscle memory. That it creates these hot streaks where you're really, really feeling it and you're in flow and you're in that kind of sweet spot of just flowing with the game. And then if you lose that grasp on it, you fall away, and suddenly you can be Marcus Peters is the best corner in the league to I don't know if Marcus Peters is going to make the team, right? Like how many corners go through that? It's really difficult to have a corner that's good year over year over year over year. Statistically, that bears out entirely. And I think that it's because of how feel-based the position is. I use the word flow. That's like the word, the like psychologist's word for that state you get in when you're just like really humming, like you really get into doing something at work or some kind of hobby, and the hours melt away, and you are. That's when a lot of people do their best work, is when they're in that flow state. And that's the best term I can think of to think about like a corner who's really cooking. So Duke Shelley was cooking; he was in flow. But if he loses it, and then he's just kind of a small corner, and then it's not. He doesn't even make the Raiders, right? One thing that, to give you an example of one of these feel-based things, when you choose to what I'll call push the button, is this really important decision you have to make on a given snap as a cornerback. For example, when you open your hips, If you start out, you've got your hips, your shoulders square to the receiver, right? You're going to backpedal, and if they turn around and it's a little hitch, everything is pointing at the receiver. It's really easy to plant your foot, go, attack, make your tackle, make a play on the ball, whatever you're going to do, right? Or if they break in or out really fast, like you're in your back pedal and you can transition out of your back pedal and start chasing. If it's a go route, you can't backpedal faster than the receiver can run. You got to open your hips, right? You have to turn yourself around and get hauling ass. But if you do that too early and it turns out to be, say, a 10-yard curl, you get cooked, right? Your everything is completely committed to running downfield. You've got momentum going downfield. And the second that receiver, sinks his hips and starts to break off the route, you're hopeless. You got nothing. And it's because of that mistake that you made early. You do it too late, you can get burned. There is a very great example of this from Bashaud Breeland, who I think was actually playing to help. He thought was there, and it was actually a miscommunication. But still, you might remember it was Jamar Chase's first game. It was week 1, Cincinnati against the Vikings, and Bashaud Breeland just let him run by. Do that too late, you get cooked on a go route, right? So you want to be early more than you want to be late, but a lot of corners will ruin their whole careers playing it so safe that they turn their hips early all the time and they get smoked on comeback routes. Duke Shelley had found that sweet spot, and he played it conservative still. You don't want to be the aggressive corner. Conservatism is the name of the game at corner, because the aggressive corner gets beat for touchdowns, the conservative corner gets beat for first downs, and I know which one I'd rather give up if I'm going to mess something up, right? So he's still missing early, and that's okay, but not missing a lot. So Duke Shelley was hitting that sweet spot beautifully in 2022, or at least that was the observation that I was able to make, 2 years ago. That was working out great. But how you make that decision can't be the same every rep, whether it's at 7 yards or 8 yards or 9 yards. Some coverages will tell you, okay, open your hips at 9 yards, right? Like, this is the coverage where you open your hips at 9 yards because that's when you no longer have help. And like, sometimes there's a rule for that. But if you're just in man coverage, if you're just in like quarters and you just like, you got this guy's going deep, you just got him. It becomes a lot more about instinct. There's film study, there's, tendency information. But a lot of it is just kind of reading that receiver and trying to feel when he's going to break down. And you got to predict the future a little bit. And when you're feeling it, when there is a subconscious instinctual thing, and reminds me of this fun fact that I learned last week, that apparently your amygdala senses danger before your conscious brain does. So if you've ever had that feeling that you're being watched, that like weird back of your head feeling of something's wrong. Like a lot of people who have like a near-death experience or something will report having that weird, like bad juju feeling before something goes wrong. And our brains are actually evolved to do that. And it kind of reminds, like, that's the kind of brain you have, where you have to sense it before it happens. And you don't really get that, like, you can't explain what you saw that said, well, I thought the receiver was going to break off here. You just kind of say, well, I don't know, I just did. And that's why I always talk about cornerback brain and having to be this kind of, you have to be dead wrong about that and then go back at the next rep with the exact same tenacity. You can't ever start second guessing yourself, even if you get burned 3 times in a row, because that's going to just get you burned 3 more times. And so you have to be like a certain kind of stubbornly insane. And I like all the corners have it, and I love that about them. But that's what got Duke Shelley to. So that's what you have to rediscover here. And if you can rediscover it, he makes the team, which has proven to be kind of hard for him in the last few years. That'll be part of the Everyman series coming up next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning anything from your backyard pickup game to actual football championships. And eBay, and it's also the key to keeping your car alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and kit that thing out with LED headlights or superchargers or roof racks or anything else that your car might need under the hood. 122 million parts to choose from. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, you know that part is going to fit your car, your lifestyle what you need or your money back. No more of this, well, I've got a 2020 version of this car. Does the part fit that? No. eBay's going to handle all of that for you. You just go on there and get the parts that your car needs. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. I got to think that when a college freshman hears he's being redshirted, it would shift the focus a little bit. You show up to college after being, the superstar stud of your high school because you got a scholarship, especially a D1 scholarship, which is all the people we're talking about. Most of the people we're talking about, at least. And then you're told, hey, we got players that are better than you. We're not really going to need you this year. Why don't you just kind of incubate? Just sit back and learn. I think it shifts that focus, right? Like it has to. You have to take that moment and it'll humble you a little bit. You go from the constant, almost like urgent scrambling to climb that next mountain to learning that you kind of have some time before you're going to be needed again. So this is a great time to go learn something new. Get a new good habit that might take a little bit of time to settle in. Now you can do that. Duke Shelley joined Kansas State in 2015, and they had not started a true freshman at corner for 10 seasons. Not since 2006. And they didn't intend to start Duke Shelley either. They told him he was doing the redshirt thing. We've got all these starters. But one by one, they started dropping like flies in the season opener. Dante Barnett, I think, is starting safety. He gets a season ender. Morgan Burns and Denzel McDaniel were both starting corners. They go down. By the middle of the season, they have to yank the red shirt off. There's this moment where the head coach, it's a coach's meeting, the head coach asks the DB coach, all right, yeah, so who do we got this week? And the DB coach is like, I don't even know. Who's to say, right? So they have to pull the red shirts off the freshmen, and they need that for depth. He has to go in. I think his first game is against TCU, which that year was a very, very pass-happy team. So not only are you going to go in, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff. And Duke Shelley rises to the occasion, getting what he kind of is known for here in Minnesota, which are these clutch pass breakups that sort of put him on the map. Good plays on the ball. Not to mention a whole bunch of ball hawking skills and interceptions. He actually racks up quite a few interceptions in college. But that kind of started the legend of Duke Shelley. And it started with this whiplash moment of showing up to college, being told we're not going to need you. And then like a couple months later being told, hey, we actually need you. Hope you're not in the middle of learning something because you got to play the Horned Frogs. That legend will grow slowly over the next few years as he gets through college. He gets into the NFL draft, 6th round pick in Chicago, and things were just like quieter in the pros to start. First year, he gets in, he makes the team. He's a special teamer mostly though, as they've got they've got plenty of other corners in 2019. The Bears did coming off of that. They were still coming off of the 2019 Bears still had a lot of that 2018 defense that did so well. So again, you're kind of told, we're not going to need you right now. But through 2020, he grows a little bit more. He's rising on the depth chart. By 2021, he's full on CB3. They've got Jalen Johnson still, but he's CB3. And he serves in that capacity all the way through 2021. But in 2022, the year he would eventually join the Vikings, he is stunned to find out that he did not make the team. And he's mad about it. He takes it personally. He feels disrespected for somebody that spent 3 years with you, grinding, working, taking that humbled lesson to heart for that crazy cornerback mind you have to have. That basically means it can never be my fault. I can never have done it wrong because I have to go back and do it with the same tenacity. To then be told, yeah, you actually did suck enough to get cut, or at least that's how it, comes across, no matter how much you sugarcoat it. That hurts. He's mad. And so when the waiver claims come in and the Vikings pick him up, that offers him a great opportunity. But he gets a lot of opportunities here. He'll join the Vikings, but he won't be needed until about mid-season, where again he has to be thrust into the fire after not even being in camp, right? Like, how much of the playbook can you learn in however many weeks? But Cameron Dantzler gets hurt again. I think it was in the Washington game that year, and Duke Shelley has to go in. And if you remember, this was the Donatel year, and the Donatel year was pretty bad on defense. So it makes a lot of sense that we remember that play versus Buffalo. And I think there was a great play against Washington at the end of that game. And to be a big part of that Colts comeback. And all these magical moments that happened in 2022. By far the peak. We talk about momentum a lot. Career momentum in the Everyman series, where there is this sort of main line, the beaten path of an NFL player's career, where they're a great high school player, and then they get to college, and then they have their redshirt year, and then they're a role player, and then they're a starter, and then they're a captain, and then they do the same thing in the draft. And then they're kind of, they're learning and they're growing, and then eventually they get a shot and they start, and then everybody gets knocked off this path at some point, except for the superstars that start for 12 years, but even they retire, and I guess that also counts. But Duke Shelley gets knocked off of that path when he gets cut by the Bears. You've lost all of that momentum. He was kind of going through that, where you're a special teamer, and then you're a reserve player, and then eventually you get a shot to start and all that. But no, now you're cut. Now you're the guy who got cut. And all the things that you accomplished before don't matter anymore, because now you're a guy, but they didn't even want you. So how much do I want you? We'll give you a shot, like maybe, but it's all going to be tentative. But what he does in 2022 ups his stock a little bit. And it culminates in a play against Chicago in Soldier Field, truly his revenge game. A still very, very sore, very hot Duke Shelley takes the field at Soldier and gets an interception. Now, this game is not one that we really remember a lot about that 2022 season. It was a functionally meaningless game that got them, that really only mattered for seeding, but didn't really matter that much. The starters were out by halftime. But that Duke Shelley interception, he takes the ball after the play, and he slams it down right on the C in the middle of Soldier Field. And afterwards, he's asked about this, and he says, I wanted them to feel as disrespected as I did. That's cornerback brain. We're back, baby. But then the disrespect continues. He doesn't get a contract back with the Vikings. He gets one with the Raiders instead. And it's not like the Raiders, it's not like there was a bidding war. The Vikings let him walk. And he didn't sign for a while. And I remember getting a lot of questions on this show. When are they going to bring Duke Shelley back? Are they going to bring Duke Shelley back? I was all for it. I still am. I love it. But for whatever reason, the Vikings said no. And I guess it's kind of part of it, right? Like, the people making that decision aren't the people who worked here when Duke Shelley played here, right? Brian Flores has no loyalty to what Duke Shelley did for Ed Donatel's defense. And the people that maybe did like you a lot because of what you did here, well, they all got canned. So Brian Flores is going somewhere else. He was trying to do something different with the corners. He lets them walk. He goes to Vegas. But crowded DB room there in Vegas last year. A lot of viable candidates, and Duke Shelley ends up being the odd man out. And he's out of Vegas. He ends up going to the Rams. He spends the year there. But now he's back. And so whatever happened last year that made Brian Flores and company not want Duke Shelley, now he's back. Maybe there's an assistant, or maybe there's somebody that, in the building that's still very much in his corner and going, hey, we need a corner, right? Like, the numbers game doesn't add up anymore. Let's get this guy. He's been in this building before. People like him. But now, if you want to talk momentum, you've been cut twice in 2 years. You haven't made a team in camp since 2021. And if it's a third time, you go deep into camp body territory, right? Maybe you'll still be a waiver claim or something like that, but you go like deep into camp body territory. So this is a really big one for Duke Shelley. It's a huge opportunity for him to resuscitate a career that had one really cool blip with a couple of dope pass breakups on a team that went 13-4. And now it's circling the drain. It's a very makeable cornerback room. It's not like you're dealing with what you dealt with in Vegas where there's 8 guys that should make the roster. I think we maybe have 4. So if you deserve to be on the roster, you'll be on it. So Duke Shelley, what do you got? We'll continue Everyman Series stuff tomorrow and talk about the openings of camp. I'll see you all for that. And as always, Skol.